Okay, and I understand our Congresswoman is on. Congresswoman Demings, are you on?
I am. Good morning to you.
Good morning. It is so nice to have you join us this morning. Thank you
It's
so
great.
much.
It's great to be with you. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, we're making up for missing
I
you at
know.
our conference. So we were all supposed to be together. When was that? March 28th. Yeah.
Yes, I remember it well.
I know. And you were going to kick off Saturday morning being our breakfast speaker, and no one can kick off a meeting like you can. So I'm sorry, but hopefully we'll get you back when we do that live again.
That's
This is the
today.
next best thing. And believe it or
Thank
not, you're
you.
actually going to be reaching more people today on this Zoom than you would have at conference, Zoom and what we're doing with Facebook Live. So you're going to be reaching a ton of people today, but really appreciate your time.
Things have a way of working themselves out, don't they?
Lemons into lemonade. Okay, I have got 10 a.m. I know your time is super important, and I want to make sure that I'm punctual for you. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone. We have hundreds of people on this Zoom, which we are now live recording. And all of you that are attending will be getting a copy of this sent back to you. We have your emails so that you'll get this and refer back to it. It also will be posted on our website, which is brucelistfl.org, brucelistfl.org. And we also are Facebook Living this. So on our Facebook page, Brucelist Florida, we're live right now out there. So please start tweeting out and asking your friends to share and be excited and gain insight into the wonderful Congresswoman Val Demings. I want to thank, first of all of our team that works behind the stage to put these on, our Wise Women Wednesdays. We basically turned an organization that is based on handshaking and baby kissing into a completely virtual organization. And we started these Wise Women Wednesdays really pretty soon after everyone became quarantined in the middle of March, and they've been extremely successful. I want to give a shout out to all of our allied. You'll love this, Congresswoman. It's your lingo. We call our regional teams not chapters and not leagues, but we call them SWAT teams. And we have SWAT teams in Miami-Dade, in Broward, in Palm Beach, in Central Florida, in Tampa, Jacksonville, Sarasota, Tallahassee. SWAT doesn't stand for the same thing that you have used it for in your background. It's strong women aligning together. And so all of our Ruthless affiliates, strong women aligning together all across the state of Florida. A big shout out to all of you and all of our supporters. Welcome this morning. For those of you that don't know Ruthless is an organization that is has one mission, and that is to identify, recruit, train, mentor, and help get elected Democratic pro-choice women at all levels of Florida government. City Commission, County Commission, School Board, State Legislative, Cabinet, and Gubernatorial. Congresswoman Demings has been a longtime supporter and friend of Ruthless. As I mentioned earlier, she was to be our keynote speaker at our breakfast at our conference that we had to put on hold because of this epidemic. And we are just thrilled that we're able to have her here this morning. So again, a warm welcome, Congresswoman. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you here for this conversation.
Well, let me say again, good morning to all of you, and let you know, while this is not the state conference, and it's always such a nice feeling and such a nice experience to be able to see you and touch you and fellowship with you, this is the next best thing. Because believe me, while the way we communicate has changed, the work that you are so engaged with has not changed, and is more important and more critical than ever. I want to also just take time to give honor to whom honor is due. Pam Goodman, you are an amazing CEO and president. The work that you're doing along with your team. I also want to call Kate Cohn McCoy and other members of your team. And I love the SWAT teams. You're singing, I'm just saying you're singing my song, but I do understand it's strong women aligning together. And boy, do we need women to do that at this time. I also just want to thank you, Ruthless, for the amazing work you do to elect women up and down the ballot. You know that when women show up, things change, and they change for the better. And so I'm looking forward to hearing your questions this morning. Again, thank you for the amazing invitation. It's so good to be with you. It's so good to be home in my home, amazing state of Florida. Thank you.
That is it, Congresswoman. You are one of our many women on the ground serving in Congress currently, but we love you, and we're again pleased to have you here this morning. For those of you that don't know Congresswoman Demings, I'm just going to read a really, really brief bio, because her life is a book, and I'm sure it'll be in a book someday, probably in the not too distant future. But Congresswoman Valdez B. Demings was born in Jacksonville to James and Eloise Butler. She was the first in her family to graduate college. She worked as a social worker, then joined the Orlando Police Department. After a 27-year career, she was selected to serve as chief for the Orlando Police Department, the first woman ever to hold that position. During her tenure as chief, Demings reduced violent crime by 40% and founded new community engagement programs, including Operation Positive Direction, which was a youth mentoring program. In 2016, she won election to Congress in Florida's 10th district, and today she serves on the House Intelligence, Judiciary, and Homeland Security committees. In addition, Representative Demings is a House Regional and Assistant Whip, Vice Chair of the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force, Co-Chair of Candidate Recruitment for the Democratic Congressional and Campaign Committees, and served on the Election Security Task Force, all things that are very near and dear to Ruthless' heart. Congresswoman Demings is married to Jerry Demings, who serves as the Orange County Mayor. The couple has 3 sons and 5 grandchildren, which I know, take a look at her and you'd never guess that she has 5 grandchildren. Anyway, it is a pleasure, again, to welcome you. So let's get right to it. Honorable Demings, let's talk about the elephant, the big elephant that's in the room. We were so excited by the prospect of your addition to the presidential ticket in this year. How are you feeling about that? And what do you think Democrats need to do to win up and down the ballot, but especially presidential race in November? So how are you feeling about all the talk and all the hashtag Biden Demings, by the way, tweet it out, hashtag Biden Demings and hashtag Val for VP, Val for VP. Honorable?
Well, you know, I thought that the way this works is that you give me like a softball question first, and then we work our way up. I see, Will, you're going straight for it, and I so appreciate it. Look, as you all know, if you've watched and read about me, I have dedicated my life to public service and started out as a social worker working with families and children, and then had a wonderful career at the Orlando Police Department. And then the good people from Congressional District 10 elected me to go to Congress. And I've been on the ground working very hard as a member of Homeland, Judiciary, and the Intelligence Committee. When I heard my name being called, and it was actually several months ago, of course, a person who is the daughter of a maid and a janitor who grew up in the South and has talked a lot about what opportunity should mean. When I heard my name being called for such an important responsibility during such a critical time, I considered it an honor. I still do. I can let you know that my name is on the list of those being considered, and I am continuing, though, to work hard, just like I did from my first day in Congress, to make sure that we lift up the American people, but not forget the least of these, those who are still struggling and having a tough time. That's what our job is. And so thank you, Pam, for the question. It's an honor, and believe me, I will keep you posted. Now, to answer your question about how do we win, let me say this. I think that Democrats, when Democrats feel encouraged and inspired and hopeful, and you help them understand why their participation matters to the polls, we don't hesitate to vote. And so our jobs, organizations like Ruthless, the National Democratic Party and the Florida Democratic Party, as well as every elected official and others who care, and that, you know, we'd love to say this election is the most critical. Well, after what we've been watching and listening to in the last 3.5 years, there's no doubt the stakes are extremely high in this election. And our job is to tell the story to Democratic voters, especially here in Florida. I do believe that if we deny the man who currently occupies the White House, Florida, we deny him a second term, and we've got to do that. And so telling the story so that persons from the north, south, east, and west throughout our state will not fail to vote. We're also, and we've been trying to do this for a while, but when we think about COVID-19, the times could not be more important. We're also trying to expand vote by mail, not just here in the state, and make it unconditional, where it doesn't matter if you're out of state or you're ill or your age or anything like that, that we're trying to expand vote by mail unconditionally across the nation. It is a major part of the legislation that we are trying our best to move forward in the HEROES Act. And so let Democrats know, make them feel valued, inspired, and hopeful. And if Democrats will win, and we'll take it by storm.
Great. Thank you. It won't be, it's not a slam dunk. Everyone has their job to do in this. So, you know, a lot of times it's taken care of. If someone else will do it. Everyone has a job, and a responsibility as well. So I can only
every individual, Pam. I think that's what has happened to us in the past. We decided to say, well, they don't need me because I know she's going to take it by storm, or he's going to, and we have some reminders that it's not that easy. We need every man and woman to register,
Yep.
to not registered, and then to vote.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. I wanted to, now we'll go to some softball questions.
I don't know.
No, this is right up your alley, and it's one that Ruthless, you know, our one criteria for all of our candidates is that they're Democratic and that they're pro-choice and that they're a woman. But safe gun legislation is key to us, and particularly to a Florida-based organization and the horrible crises that have happened in this state. You have been a really outspoken critic of Florida's stand your ground laws and arming teachers. Why are those statutes so problematic? And can you talk about the subject just a little bit?
Well, let me just say this. I started a Get Crime Guns Off the Street initiative when I was the police chief. Gun violence is out of control in America, and we've looked to a lot of what's the violent video games. Well, let me just remind everybody who is listening to me right now that other industrialized countries, your youth are listening to the same music and playing the same video games, and you do not see the level of gun violence. Look, our teachers have a tough enough job as it is, just teaching and preparing our children for the future. Teachers didn't sign up to put their tablets down now where they're teaching the security guard. Let me say this, law enforcement officers, I remember we trained, at the Orlando Police Department, we trained more on the gun range. We trained 4 times more than what the state required. But as you well know, sometimes law enforcement gets it wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the environment that we live in. Do we really want to burden our teachers with the responsibility of not just preparing and teaching our children, but to protect them and their safety? And God forbid if an accidental shooting happens, and now you've not only transferred the responsibility to keep the children safe in the classroom, but you've also transferred the liability and the guilt to the teachers. I think that is just simply ridiculous to ask our teachers to, or arm our teachers to then protect our students in that way. Stand your ground. You know, let's think about when you're in your home, and every homeowner has the right to use whatever means necessary to enforce or to protect themselves in their home. It makes a lot of sense. If someone is big and bad enough to break in your home, and especially if you're there, then you need to be able to protect yourself. Do we want to transfer that type of protection to every street corner or to every parking lot, where you're willing to take the life of an individual, as opposed to if you get in an argument that becomes heated in a public space, you have a duty to retreat and call the authorities? So are we now saying, no, let's don't do that. You stand your ground. That's now your parking lot. That's now your street corner. That's now your restaurant. And have guns ablazing. That's not the America who we are. That is certainly not the, no matter the efforts that are going on here in our home state. And I will do everything in my power to make sure neither of those laws see the light of day.
Great, excellent. And you know, your point about arming the teachers, a lot of things are coming to light that are broken in our system, I think, during this pandemic. A lot of good things, you know, like the ability to do this is coming to light also. But clearly, parents who have now been forced into homeschooling their children understand, I think, probably better than ever, the true job of what a teacher is, just in the teaching aspect. And then, as you said, to add another complete, you know, responsibility onto that. Maybe now people understand a bit more that it's really just putting the weight of the world on these teachers who went into this profession to do exactly that, teach. But we're talking about children, and I think it's really interesting that you went from being a social worker, you know, into law enforcement, and a high-ranking law enforcement official. What can parents and concerned citizens keep top of their mind as the school year is coming to a close? How do we keep our kids safe but engaged, especially our most vulnerable children from either low-income households or just you know, the children that are naturally more vulnerable? What can we do as citizens to make sure that they're safe?
You know, Pam, my first job out of college was a social worker working with families that needed emergency services and foster care children, broken families, broken children. That's a tough job. Then as you know, I went into the police department, and part of the time that I was there, I served as a detective sergeant and a detective investigating crimes about children. Keeping our children safe is a top priority, because you're absolutely correct. They are our most precious resource, and we have to do everything within our power to do that. But I do believe, and I received phone calls, and I've seen on social media, parents who have always, I think, appreciated our teachers, have a newfound respect for just how challenging the job of teaching can be, because we know many of our teachers do much more than just teach our children. There's stuff in their backpacks on Fridays to make sure that they have snacks and are able to get food or meals over the weekends. They're taking money out of their own pockets and purses to purchase supplies and all. And you're right, when children go to school, especially those that come from homes that might be challenging, our teachers are that extra set of eyes and ears on the safety and well-being of those children. And just like we planned a wonderful conference in person, but we found a way to still meet in spite of. Teach our families have to do the same thing. I was glad to hear that some of the youth summer programs that are offered by different municipalities and jurisdictions do plan to offer those programs. I know right here in Orlando and Orange County, they still plan on offering summer youth programs, although they will be limited. They will certainly not be able to service the number of kids that they have done in different times, but they still plan on having activities for a pretty significant portion of children, as well as some other programs like the YMCA and other services that are offered or programs that are offered to children. So it won't be on the same scale, but they're still there. And let me say this too, as we're living through this very tough COVID-19 period that we find ourselves in, it is important, I think, to have a check-in system or a buddy system with your family members who don't live with you, or your neighbors or friends or others, families that you've met who you want to check in on, and just check in. We're doing that right now. We're checking in with each other. We can do it through social media. We can do it through the internet. We can do it by phone. Just put a call in and just see how things are going for those families. And I think all of those things together can make a significant difference until we find ourselves getting out of this situation.
Right, right. Yeah, I know a lot of our candidates, you know how much time candidates spend on the phone, raising money for their campaign and touching their constituents and their voters. But really, since this has started, they've been doing what we call wellness checks, just checking in on their constituents or their potential future constituents, and doing exactly what you said. I want to touch real quickly on really what you're doing currently in your work. There's several pieces of key legislation that you've helped pass during this pandemic that probably most of the audience doesn't know about, but that the Senate refuses to address, such as the HEROES Act. Can you help us understand what that bill is and how it would help Americans?
Thank you so much, Pam, for that question. You know, COVID-19 is something we have never seen before, which required Congress to do some things we've never done before. 2 months ago, we were talking about the CARES 1 package, and we said it was the largest relief package in the history of our nation at $2.2 trillion. We quickly found out it wasn't near enough. And so we really did just pass the largest relief package in the history of our nation at $3 trillion. Now that's a lot of money. Okay. But our primary concern is the health, safety, and well-being of America's families. And this money is designed to do just that. In the HEROES Act, we thought the major way or the quickest way to help families that are hurting was to do repeat the same thing that we did in CARES 1. And that was with the direct cash payments that people have been able to, while it's not a lot of money, people have been able to bridge the gap as it pertains to buying groceries and rent and other things, keeping their lights on and other things that they may find themselves confronted with. But also our small businesses. We know that small businesses that make up about 70% of businesses in most communities are the backbone of our communities. That's what makes them vibrant and wonderful and wholesome. And so the other part was to keep those employees connected to those employers through the Payroll Protection Act. And so we had that in CARES 1. We had to extend funding for CARES 2. But what about state and local communities? They are the foundations on which we build a great nation. And so a major part of this bill involves funding for state and local communities, those essential workers, our firefighters, our police, transportation, our sanitation workers. My goodness, we've already talked about our teachers and our U.S. Postal Service. Essential services, a large part of the package involves those initiatives. But then what about protecting our democracy? making sure that every person, every voter in this nation has the right and the opportunity to vote. Look, we certainly hope that there's not another surge of COVID-19 in the fall, but we're not going to wait and see. We have to be proactive and be prepared. And so a significant portion of the funding involves the United States Postal Service to make sure that they're able to have the infrastructure that they need to deal with a nationwide vote by mail program. That's protecting our democracy. And last but not least, and there's a lot more in the bill, but it also includes SNAP benefits, expanding SNAP benefits, food security. We say we live in the greatest country in the world. Should America's families be worried about their next meal? So food security and also housing security. You can imagine the number of people who are worried about their inability to pay their rent or their mortgages. And so those are the major things within the HEROES Act. We are hoping that the Senate will stop playing a political game. Look, I know how well they can play. I was an impeachment manager, but we are certainly hoping, as American families are struggling all over the nation, in all 50 states, by the way, red and blue states, if that's how we want to identify them, that the Senate will do their part and pass this most important legislation that is in front of them.
Thank you, and thank you for being the jet fuel behind that. All of those things you talked about are so extremely important. I want to be really conscious of your time. But I also want people that are here, and once again, we've got hundreds on Zoom, and we're Facebook Living, tweeting out Biden Demings, hashtag Biden Demings, tweeting out Val for VP. But you know, in the end, people are really interested in certainly what you do as an elected congresswoman or an elected official, but some personal things, just so that they feel that they know the honorable congresswoman, but they know Val Demings as well. So just a couple kind of touchy-feely questions, if you don't mind. Those of us that know you a little bit better and have been around you, and certainly people that live in Central Florida, know that your relationship with your spouse Jerry is often admired for obviously the clear mutual respect that you both have for one another. You're both very driven, but family-focused leaders. A lot of us could use advice on that. So we're curious, how do you keep that spark going, Val?
Well, let me say this. We talk about it. Sometimes probably most times he would say, I talk more than he does.
Of course.
But whatever the issue is, no matter, and look, we're married to each other. We both grew up in the same profession in law enforcement. Now we're both in politics, but we're two very independent people and independent thinkers. But whatever the issues are that we may disagree on, or however spirited the debate may be, we talk about it. And we've really made a commitment to ourselves that we will not go to sleep with our arms folded and angry with each other. So for about 6 hours or so, I'll play really nice, but I might wake up the next morning and just start the conversation all over again. But it's really communication. It's the best thing. And, you know, even it's just been proven over and over again that it can work in just about any setting. I use it quite a bit with some of my Republican colleagues that I'm really trying to coerce into doing the right thing. So we communicate a lot. The other thing that we started doing, and I think you already indicated how important family is to us. We have 3 sons and we have 5 grandchildren. It would be so great if we could have the grandchildren first, but I don't think we can do that. They're wonderful. We just adore them, and we spend as much time as we can with them. But another thing we started doing when he was the sheriff and I was the chief of police, and we started, we found out, we just noticed that we were spending less and less time together. But then I noticed that everything, though, that made it on our calendars, we did. And so we started scheduling date night. and we put it on our calendars. Date night is usually on Thursday nights, and we will not let anything interfere with that unless it's an emergency. And that just really gives us an opportunity to unwind and relax and talk about whatever we want to during the day, talk about our past, our present, and our future. And it just really, that night, we both look so forward to. So if you don't have a date night scheduled on your calendars, get it scheduled.
That's great advice. Really, really great advice. Clearly, I mean, you have a wonderful family that loves and supports you, I'm sure, in whatever you do. And you must have a great circle of friends. So in closing this out, and again, just getting to know you better, how would your friends describe you, and what might they tell us if we opened up this and we had some of your friends on this Zoom? What would they tell us that might surprise some of us that we don't know about you?
Okay. How close is this friend? No, I'm just teasing.
That's up to you.
I think my friends would say that I'm loyal, very caring. I always say my greatest strength is that I really do care. My greatest weakness is that I really do care. But they also might say I'm stubborn, because once I commit, it's hard to talk me out of it. I seldom change my mind. So they would probably say that's being stubborn, but they'd also tell you that I have a great, healthy sense of humor. And I think most people don't really realize that, because I've had some really tough jobs with some really critical issues that I've had to deal with. But I really have a pretty good, healthy sense of humor. And I always try, no matter what the subject is, how tough it is, whether it's a life and death situation, I always try to put a smile on somebody's face or make them laugh before we part ways. And so sense of humor is so important, especially during these tough times.
Absolutely, so much, and I think that's both men and women share that. But I know in a women's supportive group, boy, you better laugh, because and I wouldn't call it stubbornness. I think you are tenacious. I mean, you set your mind to something clearly, and you make it happen. And whether you describe it as stubborn or tenacious, it's such an admirable quality. You are someone that people can depend on. I know you don't give up. You are driven and you don't give up, and it shows in your background. It shows in what you've achieved so far, and it shows in what is a very, very bright future for you. Do you have any closing remarks just to sign off? We're right about 10:30. I want to be, again, very respectful of your time.
Well, let me just say, Pam, to you and your amazing team, and to Ruthless, and to every person who is on the call right now, on this Zoom call, I appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you are willing to do. I appreciate the leader that is within you, because whether you're in a leadership role or not, when you are an official leadership role or not, when you are working hard every day to protect our democracy, when you're working hard every day to extend human rights and voting rights and women's rights, when you're working hard every day to show women the leader inside of them and how desperately our nation needs them. I'm telling you, when women win, things change for the better. I know that, because I'm serving in the Congress now, where we have more women serving than we ever have in the history of the nation. Now, it's certainly not enough, but we need women to run, and we need women to win up and down the ballot. So your support means everything to us. It is so good to be with you. It's so good to be in a state where I grew up in, and the state that I love so much. That's the great state of Florida. And we're going to continue to work real hard together to make it even greater. Thank you all so very much. Thank you, Pam. It means a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Congresswoman Val Demings. I hope everyone has been tweeting, posting, sharing, hashtag Biden Demings, hashtag Val for VP. No subtle messages there. Congresswoman, we wish you the best of luck. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay tenacious and strong. We look to you for a continued strong leadership and very, very bright things in your future. And we're here to support you in all of those. So thank you again. Thank you, everyone. We had hundreds on the Zoom call. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you learned a little bit more about Val Demings on this Wise Women Wednesday. Ruthlessfl.org, ruthlessfl.org is our website. Please pop on. Take a look at this video, which will be posted in a couple of hours. You'll also all be receiving it. Also take a look at all the rest of our candidates. We've endorsed 63 candidates so far this cycle. They're on our website. Please take a look at them and get excited about school board candidates, city county commission candidates, legislative candidates, all up and down the ballot that are pro-choice Democratic women endorsed by Ruthless Florida. So again, thank you, Congresswoman. Most of all, thank you to all of our supporters and supporters of Val. Stay safe out there. Have a great day. Thank you. See you next week. Thank you, Congresswoman.